The morning sun painted the Nigerian countryside in shades of amber and gold. Adewale stood at the edge of his family's vast farmland, his calloused hands resting on the wooden fence his grandfather had built 40 years ago. The land stretched as far as his eyes could see, 20 acres of the most fertile soil in Ogun State, fed by the Ogun River and blessed by generations of his ancestors. "Brother," a voice called from behind him. Adewale turned to see his younger brother, Kunal, approaching with that familiar smile that never quite reached his eyes. Kunal was dressed in an expensive agbada that seemed too fancy for a simple farm visit, his leather shoes already dusty from the red earth. "You came," Adewale said, embracing his brother warmly. "I wasn't sure you would leave Lagos for the reading of Papa's will." Kunal's smile widened. "Of course, brother. Family is everything, is it not?" Inside the modest family compound, their elderly uncle, Chief Ogunlade, waited with the documents. The old man's face was lined with years of wisdom, his white beard a testament to his 70 years on earth. Several family members had gathered, cousins, aunts, and uncles, all curious about what their late father had left behind. Chief Ogunlade cleared his throat and began reading. "To my eldest son, Adewale, who has worked this land with his own hands and kept our family traditions alive, I leave the entirety of our ancestral farmland, the compound, and all property therein." The room fell silent. Adewale felt his heart swell with both pride and sadness. His father had recognized his dedication, his sacrifice. For 15 years, he had worked this land while Kunal pursued business opportunities in Lagos, visiting only during Christmas and funerals. Kunal's face remained carefully neutral, but Adewale noticed his brother's jaw tighten, his fingers gripping the arm of his chair until his knuckles turned pale. "To my younger son, Kunal," the chief continued, "I leave 50,000 naira and my blessings. May you find success in the city you love so much." 50,000 naira. Roughly $100. Meanwhile, the land was worth millions, with multinational companies desperate to lease it for agricultural projects. After the reading, Kunal approached Adewale outside, his expression sympathetic. "Brother, I'm happy for you. You deserve this. You stayed when I left." "The land needs you too, Kunal," Adewale said, placing a hand on his brother's shoulder. "We can work it together. That's what Papa would have wanted." Kunal nodded slowly, his eyes distant. "Perhaps. Let me think about it, brother. I need to return to Lagos tonight. Business matters." As Kunal's car disappeared down the dusty road, Adewale didn't notice the cold calculation in his brother's eyes or the way he clutched the papers he had secretly photographed during the will reading. The next morning, Adewale walked his land with renewed purpose. He had plans, big plans. A Canadian agricultural company had approached him months ago about a partnership. They would provide modern equipment and expertise. He would provide the land and local knowledge. The contract would transform not just his life, but the entire village. Jobs would be created, schools funded, and the community would thrive. The contract signing was scheduled for 3 weeks away. All he needed was the official land title his father had kept in the family safe, a metal box buried beneath the Iroko tree behind the compound, known only to him and his late father. Meanwhile, in Lagos, Kunal sat in his cramped apartment, staring at the photographs on his phone. His business opportunities had been nothing but failures. A restaurant that closed, investments in a fraudulent oil scheme, debts piling up from loan sharks who were growing impatient. But these documents, these could change everything. He zoomed in on the images of the land title, his father's signatures, the official stamps. In Lagos, Kunal knew people, forgers, corrupt officials, men who could make documents disappear and new ones appear for the right price. If Papa had been fair, Kunal muttered to himself, he would have split the land equally. "I'm not stealing. I'm taking what should have been mine." He made a phone call. "Chief Badmus?" "Yes, it's Kunal. I need your help. I need documents, altered. And I need them to look older than they are. Can you do this?" The voice on the other end chuckled. "For the right price, my boy, I can make you the King of England." Back in the village, Adewale visited the village shrine with offerings for his ancestors. The priestess, Mama Alaj, was a woman of indeterminate age, her eyes sharp and knowing. She accepted his cola nuts and palm wine, pouring libations on the sacred ground. "The ancestors are pleased with you, Adewale," she said after her prayers. "But I see trouble coming. Dark clouds gather around your blessing." "What kind of trouble, Mama?" She shook her head, her cowrie shells rattling. "Betrayal from blood. Someone close wants what is yours. You must guard your inheritance carefully. The land of your fathers is protected by more than paper and ink. Those who steal it will face a reckoning." Adewale left feeling uneasy, but dismissed the warning. Kunal was his brother. They had played together as children, shared secrets, and fought side by side against neighborhood bullies. Blood was thicker than water. He was wrong. 2 weeks later, Adewale made his way to the Irako tree to retrieve the land title for the Canadian company's lawyers to review. His heart was light. Tomorrow, representatives from Toronto would arrive, and by week's end, he would sign the contract that would change his village's future. He dug at the base of the tree, his shovel hitting the metal box exactly where it should be. But when he opened it, his blood ran cold. The box was empty. No land title. No birth certificates. No ancestral documents. Everything was gone. Adewale's hands trembled as he searched frantically, digging deeper, wider, wondering if he had remembered the wrong spot. But no, this was the place. The same tree. The same markings. Someone had taken everything. His phone rang. It was the Canadian company's lawyer. "Mr. Adewale, we've encountered a problem. Our research shows there's a dispute about the land ownership. Another claim has been filed with the local government. By a..." He paused. "A Kunal Adebayo. Your brother?" The phone nearly slipped from Adewale's hands. "What?" "That's impossible. The land was given to me. I'm sorry, but until this is resolved, we cannot proceed. The claimant has documents, very official-looking documents, stating that the land was divided equally between both sons. There's even a newer will, dated just days before your father's death. We need to verify everything." Adewale ended the call, his mind racing. Kunal, his own brother. But how? When? Then he remembered the night of the will reading. Kunal had excused himself to use the bathroom. He had been gone for nearly 20 minutes. Long enough to find the safe's location? To plan this betrayal? Adewale drove to Lagos that very night, his old truck coughing and sputtering the entire 3-hour journey. He found Kunal at an expensive bar in Victoria Island, celebrating with friends, bottles of champagne on the table. "Brother," Kunal said, his eyes already glazed with alcohol. "What brings you to civilization? We need to talk. Now." Outside, away from prying ears, Adewale confronted him. "What have you done, Kunal? Where are the documents?" Kunal's friendly mask slipped. "I did what I had to do. Papa was senile at the end. That will wasn't fair. The land should be ours, both of us. I simply corrected an injustice. You stole from me. You forged documents. You betrayed our father's wishes." "Our father," Kunal spat, "who gave you everything and gave me scraps? I've lived in this city for 10 years, Adewale, struggling while you played farmer on land worth millions. No more. I've filed my claim. The land will be divided, or you'll get nothing at all. Your Canadian friends will walk away, and the land will sit there while we fight in court for years. The ancestors will not forgive this, Kunal." Kunal laughed bitterly. "The ancestors? Please, brother. This is the 21st century. I don't believe in those old stories anymore. I believe in money, power, and survival. You should try it sometime." Adewale returned to the village heartbroken and defeated. The Canadian company withdrew their offer. Word spread quickly. The Adebayo land was in dispute. No one would invest now. But Mama Alaj had warned him, and now her words echoed in his mind. Those who steal it will face a reckoning. The question was, what kind of reckoning? And when? 3 months passed like a slow poison spreading through Adewale's life. The legal battle consumed everything. His savings, his peace of mind, his faith in family. Kunal had done his work thoroughly. The forged documents looked authentic, complete with fake witness signatures and backdated stamps. The local magistrate, an overworked man juggling hundreds of land dispute cases, scheduled a hearing for 6 months away. These things take time, the magistrate had said with practiced indifference. In the meantime, neither of you can sell, develop, or lease the land. It stays untouched until we determine rightful ownership. Adewale sat in his father's old chair, staring at the photographs on the wall. His father in his youth, strong and proud. His grandfather breaking ground on the first farm. 4 generations of honest work, now tainted by greed. His wife, Folake, brought him dinner, jollof rice and chicken, but he had no appetite. Their 2 children, 8-year-old twins named Taiwo and Kahind, played quietly in the corner, sensing their father's distress. You have to eat, Folake urged gently. She was a patient woman, a teacher at the village school, and the steady foundation of their family. How can I eat when my own brother has stolen my children's future? Then fight, Adewale. Fight properly. Hire a better lawyer. Go to the newspapers. Expose what he's done. With what money? The Canadian contract would have given us capital. Now we have nothing. The farm barely makes enough to feed us. What Adewale didn't know was that in Lagos, Kunnal's celebration was already turning sour. Kunnal had moved into a luxury apartment in Ikoyi, one of Lagos's most expensive neighborhoods, using borrowed money from Chief Badmus, the same man who had forged the documents. The apartment cost 3 million naira per year, but Kunnal had assured himself it was an investment. Once the land dispute was settled and he sold his half to developers, he would be swimming in money. But Chief Badmus was not a patient man. You owe me 2 million naira, the chief said, sitting in Kunnal's new living room like a king on a throne. His bodyguards stood by the door, their presence a silent threat. The forgery work wasn't cheap. The officials I had to bribe weren't cheap. And now you live like a big man while my money sits unpaid. Chief, please, Kunnal stammered. The court case takes time. Once I win, you'll get triple what I owe you. The land is worth at least 50 million naira. Your 2 million will look like small change. Chief Badmus leaned forward, his gold teeth glinting. You have 2 months, Kunnal. If I don't see my money, you'll see what happens to people who cheat me. And that fancy apartment? I know the landlord. 1 word from me, and you'll be on the street. After the chief left, Kunnal poured himself a drink with shaking hands. Everything was supposed to be simple. Take the land, sell it quickly, pay everyone back, and live comfortably. But the magistrate's delay had trapped him. He needed money now. Not in 6 months. Now. That's when the dreams began. The first night, Kunnal dreamed of the Irako tree on his father's land. In the dream, the tree was on fire, but the flames were black, consuming light instead of creating it. His father stood before the tree, not as the frail old man who had died, but as he'd been in his prime, strong, stern, disappointed. You have broken our family, his father said in the dream. You have stolen what was not yours to take. The land will have its revenge. Kunnal woke up sweating, his heart pounding. Just a dream, he told himself. Stress and guilt manifesting in his subconscious. But the dreams came every night. Sometimes it was his father. Sometimes his grandfather, a man Kunnal had never met, who pointed at him with a gnarled finger and spoke in Yoruba. The land knows its true owner. You are a pretender, and pretenders do not prosper on cursed ground. Kunnal began to avoid sleep. He drank coffee late into the night, worked on his laptop until his eyes burned, did anything to delay the moment when he would have to close his eyes and face the ancestors again. His girlfriend, Chioma, noticed the change. Baby, you look terrible. When was the last time you slept properly? I'm fine, he snapped, then immediately regretted it. Sorry. I'm just stressed about the court case. Maybe you should talk to your brother, she suggested carefully. Settle this thing privately. All this fighting over land, it's not worth losing family. You don't understand, Kunnal said coldly. That land is my birthright. I'm not giving up. What Kunnal didn't tell Chioma was that strange things had started happening. His new car, a Mercedes he'd bought on credit, broke down 3 times in 2 weeks despite being brand new. The mechanics found nothing wrong, but it would simply stop running at random moments. His phone would ring at exactly 3 a.m. every morning, but when he answered, all he heard was the sound of wind and distant drums, traditional drums like the ones played at village festivals. And then there was the incident at the bar. Connell had gone out with friends to celebrate a potential business deal, a friend who promised to loan him money if he could show proof of the land ownership. They were drinking, laughing, when suddenly Connell felt a sharp pain in his chest. He collapsed, gasping for air, his vision darkening. His friends rushed him to the hospital. The doctors ran every test imaginable: heart, lungs, blood work. Everything came back normal. "There's nothing wrong with you," the doctor said, baffled. "Your heart is perfectly healthy. But your blood pressure was dangerously high during the episode. Are you under significant stress?" Connell nodded weakly. Stress. Yes. That must be it. But he knew, deep in his bones, that this was something else. Back in the village, Adewale's own troubles were mounting. The farm was struggling. Without investment, the equipment was failing. The irrigation system broke down, and he didn't have money for repairs. Crops withered in the fields. Workers he'd employed for years had to be let go. The village, which had been so hopeful about the Canadian partnership, now looked at him with pity. Some whispered that he must have done something to anger the ancestors for such misfortune to fall on his family. One evening, Mama Alaj visited him unexpectedly. "The land cries out," she said without preamble, settling herself on his veranda. "It knows it has been betrayed. Your brother thinks he has won, but he has awakened something that does not forgive." "Mama, I don't believe in curses." "You don't have to believe in the river to drown in it," she replied sharply. "Your brother has taken something protected by blood oaths and ancestral blessings. The land was given to your family by the village king 200 years ago on the condition that it would never be stolen, never be taken through deceit. Those who break this sacred trust face consequences beyond any court of law." "What kind of consequences?" Mama Alaj's eyes grew distant. "The land will reject him. Everything he touches will turn to dust. His wealth will become poverty. His joy will become sorrow. And if he does not return what he has stolen, the curse will consume him completely. This is not magic, Adewale. This is justice older than our grandparents' grandparents." "How do I stop it?" "You don't. Only your brother can stop it by confessing his crime and returning what he has taken. The ancestors are patient, but their patience is not infinite." After Mama Alaj left, Adewale felt torn. Part of him wanted to believe her, wanted to think that cosmic justice would prevail. But another part, the modern, educated part, rejected the idea of curses and ancestral vengeance. Yet he couldn't deny that Connell's betrayal had brought nothing but suffering to their entire family. He decided to make one more attempt at peace. He called Connell. "Brother, please. Can we meet? Can we talk about this without lawyers and courts?" There was a long pause. "What is there to talk about, Adewale? You want me to give up my claim? I want us to be brothers again. The land is dividing us. Papa would be heartbroken. Papa divided us when he wrote that will." Connell shot back. "I'm only correcting his mistake. The hearing is in 3 months. Let the magistrate decide. Until then, I have nothing more to say to you." The call ended. Adewale felt something break inside him. Not just hope, but the bond that had connected him to his brother since birth. In Lagos, Connell hung up the phone and immediately felt another wave of pain in his chest. This one was worse than before. He clutched the wall, gasping, his vision swimming. When it passed, he looked in the mirror. His face was gaunt, his eyes bloodshot. He had lost weight despite eating well. His skin, once smooth and healthy, looked dull and gray. "It's just stress," he whispered to his reflection. "Just stress. Once the land is mine, everything will be fine." But even he was starting to doubt those words. That night, the dream changed. Instead of his father or grandfather, he saw the land itself. The soil turned red like blood, and from it emerged hands, thousands of hands belonging to his ancestors, all reaching for him. all calling his name in voices that echoed with disappointment and rage. He tried to run, but the hands grabbed his feet, pulling him down into the earth. He screamed, dirt filling his mouth, his lungs, suffocating him. Connell woke up on the floor of his bedroom, having fallen out of bed. He was covered in sweat, his sheets soaked through. His hands were bleeding. He had scratched them raw in his sleep, the skin under his fingernails packed with what looked like red dirt. But there was no dirt in his apartment. The floors were marble and tile. Where had it come from? For the first time since stealing the documents, Connell felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel. Fear. Not fear of getting caught. Not fear of legal consequences. Fear of something far older and far more powerful than courts and magistrates. Fear of the land itself. The next morning, Connell stood in his bathroom, staring at his reflection with growing horror. The scratches on his hands had turned into strange marks, patterns that almost looked like symbols. He scrubbed them raw under hot water, but they wouldn't fade. His phone buzzed. It was his landlord. "Mr. Connell, we need to talk about your rent. Chief Badmus called me. He says you owe him money, and until you pay him, I cannot accept your rent. You have 1 week to vacate the apartment." "What? You can't do this. I have a lease." "Check your contract, Mr. Connell. There's a clause about character and business integrity. Chief Badmus is a powerful man. I cannot afford to offend him. 1 week." The call ended. Connell threw his phone across the room, watching it shatter against the wall. Everything was falling apart. His business deal had collapsed. The friend who promised to loan him money had heard rumors about the land dispute and backed out. His credit cards were maxed out. And now he was being evicted. He had one option left: accelerate the court case somehow, win it quickly, sell the land immediately, and pay everyone back before his entire life imploded. Connell called his lawyer. A sharp young man named Femi, who had taken the case on contingency, promised a percentage of the land's value when they won. "Femi, we need to speed this up. Can we request an emergency hearing?" "On what grounds?" Femi asked skeptically. "The magistrate already thinks this is just another family squabble over land. Unless you can prove immediate hardship or danger, he won't move the date." "What if I told you my brother is trying to sell the land illegally? Would that work?" There was a pause. "Is he? Does it matter? We just need the hearing moved up." "Connell, I'm your lawyer, but I'm not going to file false claims. That could get us both in serious trouble. We have a solid case with the documents. Just be patient." But patience was a luxury Connell no longer had. In the village, Adewale was discovering his own strange occurrences. Despite the farm struggles, one section of land, the 5 acres closest to the Irako tree, was thriving beyond explanation. The crops there grew twice as fast, twice as large, with no irrigation and no fertilizer. Workers whispered about it, calling it a miracle. "It's the ancestors," old Papa Tun said, a farmhand who had worked the land for 30 years. "They're showing you that the land knows its true owner. Look how it blesses you even in hardship." Adewale walked through the flourishing crops, his heart heavy with confusion. If the land was blessing him, why was the rest of his life falling apart? He still faced legal battles, debt, and family destruction. Folake joined him in the fields, her hand slipping into his. "The village is talking," she said softly. "They say Connell is cursed. They say he's been having nightmares and getting sick." "How do they know?" His girlfriend, Chioma, called her cousin here in the village.
"She's worried about him.
She says he's changed, paranoid, angry, barely sleeping. She asked if there was a way to break a curse." Adewale felt a twist in his gut. Despite everything, Connell was still his brother. "Do you think it's real?" "The curse." Folake looked at the thriving crops around them. "I think the land knows more than we do. And I think your brother needs to make this right before something terrible happens." Meanwhile, Connell had moved into a cheap hotel in a rough neighborhood of Lagos, his money nearly gone. Chief Badmus had sent men to remind him of his debt. They hadn't hurt him, but the threat was clear. He had 2 weeks left before the chief lost patience entirely. The dreams had become unbearable. Every night, He saw the land consuming him, the soil turning into quicksand, pulling him down while his ancestors watched without mercy. He started hearing his father's voice during the day, not just in dreams. "Return what you have stolen," the voice would whisper when he was alone. "Make it right before it's too late." Cunnel began to break down. He stopped eating properly, stopped taking care of himself. Chioma left him after he accused her of being in league with Adewale, sent to spy on him. His friends stopped calling after he had paranoid outbursts at them. He was alone. One night, desperate and terrified, Cunnel did something he hadn't done in years. He got down on his knees and prayed. "God, ancestors, whoever is listening, I just wanted what was fair. I just wanted my share. Why is this happening to me? I'm not a bad person. I'm just trying to survive." The answer came not in words but in a vision so vivid it felt real. He saw his father's land, but it was on fire. His brother stood in the flames, unburned, while Cunnel himself was outside the circle, unable to reach safety. His father's voice spoke clearly. "You are given a share, my love, my blessing, and seed money to build your own life. Instead of growing what I gave you, you tried to steal your brother's harvest. The land rejects thieves. It always has. It always will." Cunnel woke up screaming. His hotel room was freezing despite the Lagos heat, his breath visible in the air. On the wall opposite his bed, written in what looked like red dirt, were Yoruba words, "Ebikeo Gba ol." Family does not accept thieves. He fled the room, running into the night in his underwear, terrified and broken. A street vendor found him hours later, curled up in an alley, muttering to himself. The police were called. They took him to a hospital where a psychiatrist diagnosed him with a severe stress-induced psychotic break. They called Chioma as his emergency contact. She, in turn, called the one person she thought might help, Adewale. "Your brother is in the hospital," she said, crying. "Please come. I don't know what's happening to him, but he's not himself. He keeps talking about the land, about ancestors, about being cursed. The doctors want to send him to a psychiatric facility." Adewale felt his anger war with his compassion. This was the brother who had betrayed him, who had stolen his children's future, who had lied and forged documents. Cunnel deserved whatever he was experiencing. But he was also the boy who had held Adewale's hand on their first day of school, who had shared his last piece of meat when they were poor, who had cried at their father's funeral. "I'm coming," Adewale said quietly. The drive to Lagos felt longer than 3 hours. Adewale brought Folake with him for support. When they arrived at the hospital, they found Cunnel in a private room, sedated and restrained to the bed. His eyes were hollow, his body thin, his skin ashen. Chioma stood by the window, her face wet with tears. "Thank you for coming. The doctors say he's having delusions, that the stress of business failures and debt has broken his mind. But Adewale..." She looked at him desperately. "He keeps saying the land is eating him alive. What does that mean?" Adewale approached the bed. Cunnel's eyes focused on him slowly, recognition dawning. "Brother," Cunnel whispered, his voice hoarse. "You came. I'm here. The land, it won't let me sleep. It won't let me breathe. Everywhere I go, I see it, feel it, taste the dirt in my mouth. I thought I was being smart. I thought I was taking what should have been mine." Tears rolled down Cunnel's cheeks. "But I was wrong. I was so wrong. Papa didn't cheat me. I cheated myself." Adewale pulled up a chair, his own eyes burning with unshed tears. "Why, Cunnel, why did you do it? We could have worked together. I offered to share everything with you." "Because I was jealous," Cunnel admitted, his voice breaking. "You were Papa's favorite. You were the good son who stayed, who worked the land, who kept the traditions. I was the failure in the city, pretending to be successful while drowning in debt. When Papa left you everything, it felt like confirmation that I didn't matter. So I tried to take it. I tried to prove I mattered. You always mattered, Cunnel. You're my brother. I destroyed that. I destroyed us." Cunnel's hand trembled as he reached for Adewale. "The curse is real, isn't it? The ancestors are punishing me." Adewale didn't know how to answer. He thought of Mama Alaj's warnings, the thriving crops near the Irako tree, the strange occurrences both he and Kunal had experienced. I think the land knows the truth, Adewale said finally. And I think it won't rest until justice is done. Then I'll make it right, Kunal said desperately. I'll confess everything. I'll withdraw my claim. I'll return the documents. Just please make it stop. I can't take it anymore. Chioma gasped. You mean the documents were forged? You lied about the inheritance. Kunal closed his eyes, shame washing over his face.
Yes.
All of it. I hired people to forge a second will, to create fake documents.